Hello, and welcome to our channel. This is a Two Docs Mind, and my name is Dr. C.
And I'm Dr. J.
And we are going to discuss today of some leadership ideas that we have around Coach Prime. He's been in the news quite a bit lately, and I think that it's an interesting discussion to take and talk about with some leadership concepts. So, Jason, what are your thoughts on what is going on with Deion Sanders and Colorado and how they've been in the news lately?
So we're not talking football here in the X's O's. Well, our main focus today is just leadership traits. And, one of the things that I noticed just in tracking Coach Prime as he's been the coach of Colorado football for what? I would say, 9 months. And he just won his first game a couple of days ago, actually. When I look at leadership traits, I look at how he is leading the group of men and women that supports the Colorado football team. And when I see, just him having bold leadership, when I have seen him, every time I've seen him, he has motivated his team. So what does that mean? Every morning, every evening, during the practices, he's always giving them a motivation message, saying not only they can win, but also giving them a vision on how they're going to win. And, the biggest sin, the biggest thing that you have to get over in this work, in your mindset, is having a mindset to win. And what he has had not only at Colorado, but his whole entire life when he was in NFL, when he was in college, when he was in the major leagues, when he was at Pee Wee football, high school football, Jackson State, Colorado, always won and always had a winning mindset. And I think one of the things that you notice is winning is a mindset, right? And we all have that mindset. And what he's showing his players, all 100-plus players, is that they need a mindset of winning. He showed that, and they won. So can you imagine the confidence, Cynthia, that he's going to have going next? Could you just imagine that?
Yeah, I think confidence is very important when you're taking on such a big endeavor. I think it's challenging leading any type of organization, but in this instance, we get to see as watchers how it plays out in a college platform. And the whole world gets to see how challenging it is to have an idea and then take that idea and sell it to the world and have the world believe it. And as we have noticed and in our conversations, is that there's a lot of pushback, at least from what the news articles and the media of what we've seen.
Absolutely.
There has been such challenges for people to accept what he is doing and how different he's doing it and how it's going to work. So what have you seen, Jason, in this instance where he's doing a couple of different things?
No, we just talked about the motivation method, but he brought in an excellent, what I call staff. So in any leadership that you have, right, when you're running an organization and you're tasked with managing multiple things, whether it's offense or defense, whether it's accounting, finance, or some operational thing, right, you need to bring on a talented group of people that can do the work. And when you look at what they've done in Colorado, he brought in a talented offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, special team expert, players, right? And so when I look at my job, right, I manage, a multi-billion-dollar organization. I manage, 3,000 people. What I brought in is excellent executive team, excellent finance professional, HR professional. I brought in great managers and hired great talent to be able to do the work. And it's no different from a football team in leadership than running an organization. And what you have to look at is those characteristics. How do you set a vision for people, right? How do you lead people? How do you motivate people? How do you get people on one vision goal, right? One vision, one mission, and one goal for the organization. And that's what you're seeing him is coalescing a team, whether employees of an organization or a football team. coalition of people to come together with one goal in mind, and that's strictly to dominate and win.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you make, Jay. What I'm seeing and what I am interested in is he appears to be a well-informed leader, and I'm using leader in the aspect of this is a person that is taking on responsibility for the vision of an idea or an organization. So I see him as a leader who is taking on different ideas to apply that not necessarily everybody has signed on to. And he has actually exhibited a lot of experience in his field. He has a proven track record, and he has a high probability for success because he has proof of concept just from who he is. So my curiosity with this particular situation is all of the feedback that he's receiving or the lack of support he's receiving that I've seen in the news. Like, is he going to be able to perform? Is he going to be able to carry out what he says he is? Or is his team going to rise to the level or the occasion that he is calling them to rise? And for him to have made the decisions that he has made to put pressure on the team that existed before he came and after he came is totally different now. So what are you thinking, or what are you reflecting on, Jason, on some of the decisions that he's made thus far in the team structure?
Look at it like this, right? If I'm hired to help an organization, let's just use Peloton for example, because that organization has went through a lot of ups and downs recently, and that's a cycling bike. They have those nice videos. We have one at the house. Very nice machines. We love them. But when you're tasked with taking over an organization and really transforming it, if you will, to something that needed some help and support and transition it into a well-functioning organization, what do? Well, you do exactly what Coach Prime has done. Your shareholders are, his boosters, whatever you want to call them, they want to see change immediately, right? So you don't have time. So when you inherit an organization or a football team or whatever, right, that doesn't perform well and doesn't provide a quality product, and you're coming in and you're getting paid a lot of value to do that, right, because of your history, you got to make changes immediately. And so what do you have to do? You got to bring in new coaching staffs, or if you're an organization, a new executive team. You got to look at the strategy that's been done, and you got to change that strategy, right? You got to bring in key personnel that understands the industry so that they can do well. But you got to do it swiftly. Your shareholders are your boosters, or Colorado, for example, in Coach Prime, right? He doesn't have 5 years to figure it out. He has 1 year at most before he start even hear more critics. But I mean, at the end of the day, right? You mentioned they were hating on him, right? Mm-hmm. See? Mm-hmm. And so at the end of the day, if you're doing something unprecedented, right? If you're doing something so unique that it hasn't been done, you're going to hear both positive praise and you're going to hear haters, right? And negative. And no matter what, Deion Sanders has dealt with haters his whole life. What he's doing in his organization, you just don't see it all the time. And so he has a vision, right? Now his first game vision paid out. They won. He's getting some more kudos. But he had to go through a huge storm to get there. So, when you're talking about organizational change, Sin, mm-hmm. You're really talking about, you need a turnover. You need to bring in fresh blood, people that has different visions, people that have seen success and understand and willing to, dig down deep, go in the trenches with you and make that change. Mm. So, and I'm seeing him doing it, and I'm excited.
Yeah, it is an exciting thing to see. Some of the things that I see and I felt interested in is how he's actually conducting himself in front of the general public, and how he has to compose himself, like I said earlier, with a lot of the criticism that he's experiencing. How do you, as a leader of any organization, you could take note, how do you conduct yourself when you know that what you're doing is right, when you feel like it is something that is to be believed in, it's a proven concept, like I mentioned earlier in this video? How do I sit in front of the world where people are throwing essentially stones at me and still say this is a great concept, but yet and still these people are saying this is not going to work? Do you have any ideas of how you would handle something like that?
Listen, you meet fire with fire, right? When you got people really that's hating, throwing stones, right? You have to believe, right? And I think his thing is, I believe, right? Coach Brian says, I believe, right? And that's critical. And then what you have to do, when you have a large organization, he can't only believe, everybody has to believe, right? And so that's his goal. You have to bring in talent that says, no coach, no CEO, no manager of this organization. I support you. I see your vision, and I'm going to do what it takes to implement the vision that we both see. And then I'm going to bring in other people that sees that vision. So yeah, maybe only internally we see and we believe, right? But when you start experiencing some level of success, there will be more people believing. I remember when I first came into an organization, the morale was low. I'm managing at that time about, I think, about 400 people. And the morale was pretty low because the prior director or assistant director in that role didn't support their team. So I began to do team building functions, barbecues. I began to do, birthday parties every month. And we were doing, family day at the swimming pool, softball games, bowling tournaments, all these things to bring in some team camaraderie, right? And when we first hosted the event, maybe 20 people showed up, right? But we stayed consistent. We knew the vision. We knew what we wanted. About a year or so later, 90% of the people showed up, right? Because they saw success. They saw that we were serious. We were consistent. We had a vision. We had a message. It wasn't about us. It was about our people. We got people to believe, and then they went and they just did their thing. So what you have to do is bring in people. Stay consistent. Stay focused on the plan. And at the end of the day, just really executing.
Yes, I agree. And that was a good example. But also, I'd like to take note and reflect on how I can become a better leader, and how I could take notes when I see somebody being heavily criticized, or they have this wonderful concept and it's not being well received with the public. And some of the major characteristics that I see in those people include maintain emotional resilience. What does that mean? If you see a person maintaining emotional resilience, that's not an easy thing to do. Being emotionally, essentially intelligent, when you're being, again, attacked and things are coming at you from all directions. What does being emotionally resilient mean to you, Dr. J?
I mean, being able to, under tremendous amount of pressure, right? You have to be able to stay focused, stay grounded, stay calm, and be still decisive, right? Understanding that there's a lot on the line. They need a leader that's not buckling, that doesn't fold under pressure, that doesn't make bad decisions and emotional decisions when everything is on the line. And that's critical. I remember a time, when we had a huge issue at a utility that I managed. And, it was a lot on the line, right? Whereby, we were going to have to put out, a tough message out to the folks around that utility. But, we were met with some critical decisions. And it was really tough decisions. We calmly got in the conference room. We went through the pros and cons. We listened to everybody. gave everybody a voice, and then I, as a leader, had to make a calm, informed, emotionless decision based upon all the factors that we have, and being able to stand up and own that decision, right? Whether the decision was good and people praise you, or whether the decision went bad and people criticize you, yet still be able to stand up and own that decision. That leader, right, it still has to take ownership in that decision, but have the confidence, have the calmness, like you say, that emotional intelligence to be able to make a good strategic decision. And when you're able to do that, and you're not doing a blame game, and you're not screaming and yelling at folks, having fits in the room, then people get behind that, right? And when the next incident happened, right, they know that they're going to feel supported and they're going to be all in. And so it takes that from a leader to be able to do that. See?
That's a great attribute to have. I agree. When you set that tone and just being able to control your emotions and control your behaviors, it just shows so much to the people that are following you, essentially, and looking up to you and saying, I can follow in this person's tracks, and I can decide that this is the better way to handle challenges. And I think the way you handle challenges also marks the person who you are, and determines your success or failure in certain situations. So another thing that I like to look at when I'm looking at situations like Coach Prime again, and how he handled himself just in the news media, just sitting at the media desk and having to have this barrage of questions come at you and say, this is my response to this, and still remain true to yourself. One of those things looks like using or taking responsibility for the choices that you make.
Absolutely.
Taking responsibility for an ownership or accountability for the vision that you're implementing, whether it goes wrong or whether it goes right. I think being able to be accountable is important. What do you think about accountability?
No, it's everything. I mean, when I say everything, it is everything for a leader. And I'm just going to talk about Coach Prime. And in a sense, when they were at a critical stage in the game, I think one of his players made a fumble. So what does that mean in the real world? They made a turnover and they made a mistake, right? They didn't hold the ball tight enough. It fumbled. The other team got the ball. But what was more critical, and different coaches react differently. I saw a coach just recently punch a kid for making a mistake, right? And that's an extreme case. I've seen coaches, and you have seen them if you play sports, yell and cuss at kids, right? And that happens all the time, especially at the collegiate level, high school level, pro level. But Coach Prime did something I think that was very critical. The young man ran to the sideline, and Coach Prime gave him a hug, gave him a word of wisdom, told him, shake it off, and then he told him, get ready for the next play because we got to get going, right? He didn't put the blame on the kid. His goal was to win the game and not win the individual plays and the battles, right? And so that kid did internalize it, got focused, shook off the era, and then was able to, basically was able to go out there and play one heck of a game in Dylan Edwards, right? A heck of a game, right? And had 4 touchdowns, a lot of yards. But Cynthia, what would have happened if Coach Prime would have screamed and yelled and cussed that kid out and benched him and did all that? What would have happened?
I don't think he would have the results that he was trying to produce. I think screaming and yelling is a very negative approach to trying to get positive outcomes out of. I think a better approach is to change a person's narrative and truly give input and support in a different way. And I think it leads into a conversation that I like to have frequently about a lot of leaders and organizations and how we can do better together, is about storytelling and changing the narrative and trying to tell the story where people start to really see the picture of what leaders are trying to do in organizations. So narrative telling is just like what you just suggested, is that instead of approaching the young man and saying, man, you could have done different.
Yeah, yeah.
He changed the narrative. He said, no, you're doing what you're supposed to do, just do better. Whatever he said in his ear worked. And I think that he took a different approach, like I said, that was more of positive reinforcement than negative reinforcement. So I think, making sure that you keep the correct posture, you keep the positive balance of things is a critical characteristic that a lot of leaders may be missing today.
No, I mean, positive. You got to be positive, right? And especially when you look at news and all that, in any organization, most of your day, if you're consuming news, or you're live in a bad environment, or you have people around you that doesn't support you, you're feeling that negative attention all day. And so, where you can go somewhere and it's always positive, right? A positive message, right? A positive goal, a positive reinforcements, just things that are positive to you and your soul, you're going to perform, right? And when you look at any organization, right, when you have people that's bought in to the vision, you got people that's bought into that mission, you got people that's bought in to the culture, you got people that's bought into the leader and what they want to do with the organization, right? And you got buy-in all around, right? You can do some great stuff. And so, I just think that team, that organization bought into Coach Prime.
Absolutely. That this goes into a lot of different attributes that I look for in each leader. That just going back, just talking to leaders and seeing how they progress in adverse situations and are able to deal with strong criticism and are able to, in the eye of the storm, are able to be and step up and take accountability and say, I am the one that's going to shoulder this burden and not just pass it off to the people that I'm trying to lead into a different direction.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I look for in leaders is how they are capable of managing in a professional, having a professional, I want to say, posture at all times. And that looks different for everybody, but being able to maintain your professionalism is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot like you said about, what was that? Being able to, you just mentioned it. I'm sorry.
No.
Having emotional resilience.
No, but I mean, and like you say, staying professional. When you bring that professionalism to the table, when you look at the swag of Coach Prime, right, and you see him on your picture, what you see is him, right? He's authentically him, right? He ain't making no bones about it. He's not, quivering about it. He's not adjusting himself for the environment. He is being himself, right? Cowboy hat, right? And take a look at the picture. Cowboy hat, sunglasses, gold chain, hoodie, right? All the things that you see, he's not making any qualms about who he is as a person. So when he comes to work every day, he's not dressing up in a suit. He's not trying to talk like no one else. He's not trying to be anybody else besides Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, right? And by him doing that, right, he's bringing his whole self to the table. And right, when you look at a Colorado, Boulder, right, where, I'm just going to say there's not a lot of diversity in those parts of the woods, right? And that's no issue there. The issue is, when he comes, do you accept it? And that's when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion,
yes,
belonging, and all those things. You're talking about, can you as an organization bring on someone, let them be themselves, let them be comfortable in who they are culturally, and bring their cultural perspective to the table.
It's a big ask.
Right? And be able to bring their cultural idea to the table, right? Then, can you accept that? And then can you use that power, right? And that influence of having that person there to leverage the organization going forward. When you look at a Starbucks or someone like that, they have that diversity there. When you look at other organizations, I don't want to put them on blast, and they do silly commercials, dumb ads, or they say something silly on TV or social media. In most cases, it's because they don't have diversity at the table that says, hey, that idea is stupid, right? And so that's where diversity, is there. And so when you look at Coach Prime, when you look at the professionalism, when you look at what he brings a big punch that in most cases, the reason why he's at Colorado and not at some of the bigger programs, right, even Florida State where they, was going to hire him, is because in many cases they didn't want to bring him and his diverse view and his culture to the table. They were afraid, and that's what you got to be careful of. And it's critical in organizations that you are open to something that just doesn't look the same all the time.
Yeah, that's a big attribute that a lot of great corporations do well, and a lot of other corporations don't do as well. I think that you bring up a good point about him pushing the narrative about diversity and inclusion, and that is so important, especially today. There's a lot of disturbing things that are happening in the news, and it's trying to push the narrative in a different direction. But I want to say, Coach Prime to come into an organization and say, this is who I am authentically, and also I want to bring on people who reflect who I am and my culture into the organization. It speaks volumes about what type of leadership he's trying to exhibit.
But it also speaks volume to who hired Coach Prime.
That's
so
true.
When you look at the athletic director and you're looking at the chancellor, the president, right? You're looking at the board of regents or whomever is managing
That's
it,
true.
right? It takes bold leadership to bring that in and to get the buy-in, not just from the athletic director, but pretty much the entire university system and for that city, right, to buy in and be able to support those players, support Coach Prime, and support what he brings to the table. So it just takes bold leadership. And Coach Prime really should have been a leader of any organization, or leader of a large football team long time ago. But again, there was very few organizations that was willing to take that bold leadership. So, it takes that. And
Out of the box type of thinking.
And when you look at most of the corporate Fortune 500s, that's what they need. They need leaders that's going to bring something different to the table instead of that traditional thing that they have been used to. Again, most people, and I worked in the corporate setting, they just want what they're used to. They want to be around the things that they're used to. They want to be around the things that they're familiar with. And when they get something familiar, they get scared, right? They get nervous, right? And they get intimidated. And when you see that, it's just the insecurity of most leaders. You just need to be able to be secure and just be open to something different than yourself. And that's why diversity is there, and that's why people are talking about that equity work, because it's just not there in many cases.
Yeah, I think that we mentioned some great characteristics that I think that I again, we can use Coach Prime as an example, but just all around, I think great people who are able to enact their vision into situations have determination, they have transparency, they want to include people from diverse backgrounds and diverse opinions, but also I think a big characteristic that it may be play out in this situation as well is staying determined, just staying on your path, making sure that you are focused and got your eyes on the prize. I think staying determined is it's also very difficult to maintain when you're experiencing adversity throughout your leadership. What do you think about determination and staying strong?
Listen, you gotta believe, even when others don't. If you feel like you got the right team, the right plan, you're executing, you're making tweaks too, right? Because it's not all going to go perfect. But when you believe you're doing that and you're seeing the change, right? You got to make sure you're seeing those changes. You got to create key milestones, key targets so that you make sure you're hitting. But if you're seeing that, even when the world doesn't see it, you gotta stay determined and focused. You gotta think about this. And we can talk about Coach Prime. You see Coach Prime on the screen right now, and let's talk about it. 3 days ago, they said he had the worst football team in the country.
Talk
right?
about it.
3 days ago, they were asking, does he have any players? Right? 3 days ago, they were saying they were going to lose three. They were going to only win a few games. Most people were saying they were going to lose all their games. They didn't have talent. They didn't have people. They didn't have skill. They didn't have this. They didn't have that. Well, he never, was pushed off his mission, vision, and goal. He stayed determined, right, to your point. And two, he kept that silly noise away from his players. And, he was out in front, but he protected his players and his team and really injected in them something positive, motivation, and of course, it's the scheme and the skill to be able to do the work. But that's when you're looking at any organization, right? And one of the things I would say, Sam, and I think is really critical in this, is everything that you do, leadership shows up. Whether you had a fender bender yesterday, I saw somebody get in a car accident the other day, right? They got out the car and started screaming and yelling and cussing and ready to fight. What kind of leadership is that? Scared some old man half to death, right? Right? They could have got out the thing. I'm certain the guy recognized it was his fault. Got their information, had a decent conversation, and kind of worked through it with the police. But instead, somebody screamed and yelled and acted a fool, right? Leadership. I'm certain that if they exhibit that day, whether they go into their professional life, their personal life, their spiritual life, they're going to have that angst. You have to practice. You want to be the leader you want to be. You got to practice that morning, noon, at night, and you got to dream about it, right? And the reason why is leadership just doesn't show up one time and then goes away. It's like Michael Jordan didn't just start being who he was one day and it just went away, right? It just showed up one day. It took practice all day, every day, consistently, no matter what, rain, sleet, or snow, right? It took that level of leadership to be able to do that. And so, when you look at everything that you do in life, and that's what me and Sin's channel is about, right, is Two Doc Minds is about looking at current events, looking at organizations, looking at leaders, giving you value, things that you can use in your own life, strategies you can use in your own life to be leaders, right? Right, if you choose to go that route. But even if you don't become a leader organization, CEO, manager, executive, and all these things, no matter where you are at in an organization, you can display leadership. Whether you're on the front line, picking up garbage, answering phones, cutting down trees, right, doing network cables, there's ability every day to show up and be a leader. And that's what Two Doc Minds is about.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think my biggest excitement about a Two Docs Mind is that we're able to talk about leadership from different viewpoints. I do believe in the unsung hero. I do believe that leadership shows up in different aspects of people's lives, at different levels of the organization, at different times and stages in your life. I do believe that leadership is such a wonderful topic to apply to everything that you do in this world, because we don't all sit at the board, the board meeting. We don't all sit at the top of the organization, but we all do matter. And if I can open the door for somebody else to walk through and to become bigger than what they were before they walked into it, that makes me a leader. If I could just absolutely say, let me hold this one bag for you so you can have a lighter load so you can move faster, that makes me a leader. And I think that, again, reflecting on Coach Prime, I just think it's nice to witness this as an example, because I'm not a big football fan, but I can follow it to a certain degree. Just to hear him speak passionately about his players about what it means for him to do what he's doing at this time, and how he's able to communicate his vision to the general public, how he's able
Yeah.
to pull his team together and pull the valuable assets together to carry out the actual success that he's experienced already with the team that he's constructed, and to actually hire the right people at the right time to get the job done. It says so much, and it's very inspiring. And again, I'm not that much into football, and I can take that much away from it. And I think everybody can take so much away from it at this point.
No, I mean, I think it's critical. The reason why you see Coach Prime on the screen, you see people all day talking about him. You see, it being the top topic of discussion is not the win. I think on the surface it's about win, about organization winning, and that's critical. But it's people haven't seen that type of leadership. Mm-hmm. That's it, right? Coach Prime authentically showing who he is as a person, as a human being, bringing those qualities, spiritual quality to the table, bringing the motivational qualities, bringing a plan of action, bringing a mission, vision, and goal to the table, right? What they don't understand is they're not used to seeing leadership, and especially leadership that looks like Coach Prime. And so that's what's unique about this. There's nothing unique. It's leaders like that all the time. He's just at a national stage. But what they're witnessing, right, is not winning football games. Of course, I think that they're going to win a whole lot of games. But I think what they're witnessing is tremendous leadership. And that's what we want to showcase here at Two Docs Mind.
Doc Mind. I think, leadership plays out in places. Maybe for me, it's nice to see again as to where we can see an example, an exemplary, or a nice example of leadership, and how you can rise to the occasion. And then you can look in other situations as you go through life and say, oh, this is what leadership looks like under a different umbrella.
And to your point, make a comment down at the below and let us know what you think. Was this some type of leadership or not? I think Dr. J and Dr. C is definitely think it is. But see, when you just look at it, right, and I know that you're not a football person. You don't really look at football games. You didn't look at Coach Prime game. I was excited, but I know you don't look at it. When you just look at it just from an outside person looking in, and you're just looking at it from straight leadership standpoint, what do you see in Coach Prime?
First of all, he's a wonderful speaker. I think that he's able to use his words to exact change. And that is just powerful in itself. If you're able to communicate your ideas and get them out in front of the world, and then for the world to actually listen is a tremendous feat in itself. But when I look at Coach Prime, I see somebody that has taken on a tremendous burden on his shoulders and took accountability and said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it with all my spirit and put it into action and stand by it if it succeeds or if it fails. I mean, that's just, how we all should operate at some level.
No, I agree. And just to kind of close this out, this segment out, I agree with Sin. I think leadership skills come in so many different forms. Coach Prime is one, but there's many other leaders that we're going to focus on and share and even interview that will share their style, right? So whether you have the glitz and glamour and the celebrity of Coach Prime, that's not needed, right? All is needed is for you to be authentically you, right? And bring you to the table. Bring your ideas to the table. Bring your convictions to the table. Bring your plan, your mission, visions, and values to the table. And when you bring those things to the table, people will follow. People will buy in. And you're able to build anything in this world, anything in the world. If you have the right plan, you're willing to put in the hard work, and you're willing to bring on the right team members to support you, there's nothing that's not possible. So, you know, I want you all to make sure you like, make sure you make some comments if you agree or not. Let us know. I want you to subscribe. And Cynthia, any last words?
No, I just appreciate anyone who was able to watch our videos. Look out for some more videos. We're very excited about the trajectory of Two Docs Mind with Dr. C and Dr. J. Look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you.